Hey guys, welcome back to Haven, episode 9. John didn't say anything. Jade was still for a few more seconds, head slightly cocked to the side, intently staring at his face. John began, but Jade leapt at him, wrapping her arms around his own, pulling him into a tight hug. I knew I'd find you, she spoke into his shirt, her voice muffled. John relaxed into the hug, his nose buried in her hair, letting relief wash over him. He thought he would never see them again. Nothing could describe how good this felt, just to have another body pressed against his. She finally pulled away, her eyes once again traveling to his face, her arms still intertwined with his, an expression sad. The aura of warmth that had grown in his chest faded slowly, as he realized why she was looking at him that way. I know I don't look like myself much anymore. He trailed off. It's okay, she said. I guess that's going to happen to me too. John suddenly felt horribly selfish. He had been so excited to see Jade, he forgot what that meant. I'm really sorry, he stated. No, it's really okay. I'm glad to see you. I missed you so much. We all missed you so much. She smiled, showing her still crooked teeth, and John managed to smile back. His face muscles were stiff. The smile felt out of place on his face. He couldn't remember the last time he had laughed. It hadn't been for a while. Hey, we need to go, Kirk had said, appearing at John's shoulder. Jade's eyes bugged out and she leapt backwards, pulling John's wrist and yanking him away from Karkat. The troll stopped and raised his hands, clearly startled. Careful, they're dangerous, Jade hissed to John out of the corner of her mouth. Karkat shifted his gaze to John, looking hurt. No, he's my friend. That's Karkat. He saved my life. Jade looked astonished. Her eyes traveled back and forth between their faces. But he's, fully turned, she said to John. Karkat scowled. Okay, listen here, dipshit, he stated. Whoa, easy, John said, pulling his hand out of Jade's grasp and leading between, but she had already let out an indignant gasp. Dipshit? At least I'm not a monster. Okay, no, that's really not necessary, John said, while pushing back Karkat as he attempted to leap forward. What makes me a monster? You're just the same as me. I'm not the same as you. Look at you. Guys, stop! John had leapt forward too. John used his left hand to keep her at arm's length. He struggled to keep the two apart. Look at me. You're here. You're in this fucking city. You're gonna look just like me in a month. Tops. I'm still a normal person. You've already progressed too far and probably started killing people. Who knows? You probably have a pile of bodies stored up in your... Shut up. I don't kill people. Look at this place. Everyone is dead. Tell me that this disease doesn't make you kill people. How can you say that? You're just like me. You've got this too. You're no better. Guys, knock it off, John shouted, pushing hard and sending both parties staggering back where they stood, glaring at John. Okay, Jade. I know you're scared, but please stop being an asshole. She opened her mouth, about to reply, but John stuck up his hand, silencing her. Karkat, I'm really sorry, but can she still stay? Karkat sighed. I'm not going to kick you out, Egbert, but can I wait, like, an hour? I've got a recently blinded best friend and a chainsaw-wielding maniac to deal with back home. Yeah, thanks, John said. Karkat shrugged and left, quickly vanishing back into the alley. John turned back to Jade, who sighed sheepishly. Let's take a walk, he said. Yeah. He turned and entered an alley that would take them the longer way back home. Jade ran up to quickly catch his step, linking her arm around his. I'm sorry. It's okay. It's kind of a lot to deal with, I know. How have you been? She smiled. This seems so weird. It feels like you just left yesterday. John almost returned the grin, but then began speaking. He started from the beginning, with the almost being murdered, then Karkat, and so on. She interjected every few seconds with a gasp, or really? By the time he finished recounting his story, they were nearly at the bunker, which John hadn't seen in several weeks. He showed Jade the inside of the clothing store, but no further. "Can we go up?" she said, staring at the top of the building, once they had gone back outside. It was a clear night, the stars were visible, and the sheet was bathed in moonlight. "Come on," he said, running back inside. The climb was slightly more perilous this time, with the wind being much stronger than it had been the first day he had climbed. Already the idea of being out in the sunlight was strange to John. They reached the top in hardly any time, Jade scrambling up easily, used to climbing trees and buildings back home. It had been a pastime for the four of them to scale tall structures and just sit at the top, sometimes not even speaking. He vividly remembered one time when they were in 6th grade, and John was sure they were going to get arrested for being chased off the roof of a local elementary school. Half of them were missing, but sitting side by side with Jade made John feel more whole than he had been in weeks. "How are they?" he said after several minutes of aimless stargazing. I don't know. It was hard. We all missed you so much. I think they'll be all right. We're all gonna feel better knowing you're not alone." She paused for a moment and continued. "These past few months have been really weird. When you were diagnosed, I guess. They didn't really say anything. We didn't realize until the end of the day. Dave went back inside to look for you after class, but your locker had been cleaned out already." "He went in my locker?" "We all know your passcode." She smiled, but it faded fast. "And then, finally, the principal told us. We went in and made a racket, and they finally told us. And after that, it was very quiet. Dave stopped talking altogether. Rose kind of got weird and dark. We would hang out like normal and stuff, but it would be so different. We'd spend hours just sitting there, staring at stuff. Sometimes we'd go and see your dad." "My dad?" John's voice cracked in his throat. He'd been avoiding these kinds of thoughts on purpose. "Yeah, he would bake us stuff still, but didn't talk that much either at first. But then he moved in with Rose and her mom." "Rose?" "Yeah, she was a bit weirded out at first, but him and her mom mostly stayed out of her way. I think Roxy is good for your dad, personally. He always seemed a bit happier when she was around." John felt tears prick behind his eyes. He took off his glasses and hastily wiped them. "Oh no, John," she said, seeing him. "Fuck," he muttered, trying fruitlessly to stop them from coming. No, it's fine." She reached out her arm and placed it over his shoulder as John began to shake. I just... And then the sobs came. Huge, racking sobs that had been carefully repressed this whole time. Jade squeezed him close and rocked gently back and forth, and John sobbed into her shoulder. Tears were flowing freely down his cheeks as he inhaled in shuddering breaths. Every emotion that he had been feeling flowed out in a senseless rhythm. His dad, his friends, slowly morphing into a monster. Seeing kids his age murdered, burying Tavros, the sickening scent of troll blood, Mindfang, being so scared all the time, not being able to do anything, not being able to exhale the slightest control. The ever-growing feeling of being an animal trapped in a cage, unable to see daylight. Jade had slowly rocked him back and forth, leaning her against the top of his. She was here too. Now she was going to die, and change, and become different. John wailed and coughed, unable to articulate any of this into words. But Jade understood just as well. After several minutes, John eventually quieted down, sliding down until his head rested in Jade's lap, eyes squeezed closed. She absent-mindedly began combing his hair with her fingers, tears dripping off the end of his nose, making spots on her shirt. Whenever John was asleep or just very still, John didn't know. Jade didn't know. She sat that way for a long time. until her legs began to go numb. She thought about what John had told her, both about the people he had the luck of meeting, and what was going to happen to them both. She was terrified, and even though she was convinced herself the ambulance journey here that she was not, it was true. Nothing would be the same again, she thought, but at least I'm not alone. John woke up a few hours before dawn, his head still planted firmly in Jade's lap. He sat back, rubbing his dried tears off his face for the second time that day. "Let's head back?" he asked, and Jade nodded. The journey back was silent, Jade contemplating what John had told her. She was still a little nervous to meet the other trolls. Seeing Carquette again was going to be especially embarrassing, considering her previous outburst. They arrived at the candy shop, Jade slowly stepping inside with a look of wonder on her face. "This is so pretty. This is the coolest place to have a secret room underground." "You think so?" She nodded. John shrugged. He himself had found it kind of creepy when he first arrived. But then again, Jade had always had the strange talent of seeing the good side of things. They reached the end of the hallway below the trapdoor to find the door locked. John knocked once and yelled, "It's me." There was scuffling and footsteps, and the door was opened a moment later by Carquette. He saw Jade over John's shoulder and scowled, turning away and leaving the door standing open. John sighed and followed him inside, hoping the two would start getting along soon. Solix was sprawled out on the couch, held tilted upwards, and was fiddling with the faded Rubik's Cube without looking at it. Kanaya was perched on one of the armchairs, water dripping off her chopped hair and into the shoulders of a ratty sweater. John pulled Jade, who had been hovering around his shoulder, in front of him. "Hey guys, Carquette probably already told you, but this is Jade. She's my friend from before I came here." "I'm Kanaya," she said, smiling briefly. "Solix." Carquette, who had gone to stand by Kanaya, muttered something under his breath. Kanaya socked him in the arm, then turned to Jade. "Are you hungry? We were just putting up some food." "Yeah, thanks," she said. She crossed her arms and sat on one of the wooden chairs near the table. John copied her, but pulled his a little further away. He didn't want to have anything to do with the table for a while. In fact, the entire place was becoming more and more claustrophobic, with each additional person moving in. They were now short 2 beds. John longed for the bunker, which had at least 3 times more space and at least 10 spots to sleep. "So, any news on Terezi?" he asked. Carquette looked up. "Haven't heard from her. I don't even know if she's still gonna do it." "I just want to get back to the bunker. This place sucks," Solix interjected. "No offense." "It's a little small when you all take refuge here," Kanaya answered, rolling her eyes. "We just wish she would stop trying to be so fucking elusive. I mean, she's a teenager like the rest of us. She's just a little crazier." "Water's ready," Solix said. All 4 of them turned to the camping stove in the corner. Sure enough, the pot of water was bubbling rapidly. "How did you?" "I smelled it using my new blind guy nose powers," he said, sitting up and running a hand through his hair so it stood up on end. He turned over the back of the couch to face the general direction that John and Jade were sitting, eyes closed. "Sup, Egbert? Just waltzing around picking up chicks, I hear." He grinned, and John could see with a pang that several of his teeth were missing or broken. Jade made a noise in her throat, but didn't say anything else. "Oh, Jade," he continued, "I'm sorry in advance for how stupid I look right now. But as you probably know, I nearly got murdered." "Yeah, John told me," she said quietly. Solix then opened his eyes and she recoiled back in her chair. John only flinched slightly as the 2 gaping holes stared at him. They seemed bigger than his eyes had been. Deep craters sunk into the boy's slightly scarred face. Solix chuckled slightly, imagining Jade's reaction, and closed his eyes again, sinking back into the couch. Karkat had joined them now, and had sat up. All 5 of them sat in silence, the only sound cooking noodles. "Did you eat the candy already?" John finally asked as Kanaya began dishing out noodles in chip bowls. "You kidding?" Karkat answered. "I'm saving this shit. It's gold, man. Gotta lock it up. Here, careful, it's hot," he added, an undertone as he placed the steaming bowl into Solix's hands. John got up and moved towards the camping stove, grabbing 2 bowls of noodles for him and Jade. She accepted the bowl and began slurping the noodles down ravishly. John remembered that had probably been the first time to eat anything all day. "Sorry, I should have gotten you something to eat earlier." "It's okay, this is good," she said in between bites. Karkat was the first to speak a minute later. "Hey, Jade, was it?" She nodded. "I'm sorry about earlier. I shouldn't have said that stuff." "No, it's okay. I started it." "Did you guys brawl or something?" Solix interjected. "They were trying, but I kept getting in the way," John answered. "Good. KK's would have gotten his ass kicked anyway." "Hey!" I agree with Solix. "No one cares. I could have totally taken her anyways." "I doubt it. You should have seen her back home. She was beating up people left and right." "John, that was 1 time." "That was at least 3 times. You beat up 3 people? Hey, that's coming from the girl with the chainsaw." The melee of voices rose, jumbling together along with giggles. John smiled, despite the crazy things that had happened not that long ago. Everything seemed pretty okay. Kanaya did look a little strained still, and Karkat still glanced at Solix a few times more than necessary, but they still laughed along with Jaden himself. Everyone finished their meals quickly, and the bowls were gathered by John, who dumped them in the shower. He couldn't remember whose turn it was to do the dishes, but he was pretty sure it wasn't his. When he got back, Jade tugged on his sweatshirt. "Can I sleep somewhere? It's like 3 in the morning." "Oh yeah, I forgot. Sorry. Kanaya?" She looked up. "Where should she—" He gestured to Jade. "Oh, she can take my bed." "Really? Thanks. Oh, so she gets a bed." Solix grumbled. "Dude, I've been sleeping on the floor for the past, month," John reminded him. "Follow me. I'll show you where it is," Kanaya said, standing and gesturing to Jade, who rose from her chair. "By the way, thank you all. All of you guys are really awesome," she said, then followed Kanaya to the bedroom. John, now by himself in the corner of the room, got up and joined Solix and Karkat on the couch. "So, is she hot?" Solix said after a moment. Karkat rolled his eyes. "You're such an asshole." Yeah, I was kidding," he replied, sounding slightly deflated. Kanaya returned, shutting the door behind her. "Scoot over," she said to Karkat, who slowly wiggled to the right. Kanaya flopped down and brought her knees to her chest, resting her forehead on them. "Are you okay?" Karkat asked. She shrugged. "What you did was justified," Solix said. You don't have to feel guilty about it." "I know, but still." Karkat shrugged to extract his arm from between them. John, Kanaya, and Solix and Karkat were wedged together quite tightly, but he managed to wrap it around Kanaya's shoulders. "Hey, it's—" Bang! The door crashed open, causing the 4 of them to jump and Solix to yelp, "Who?" "I'll do it," Terezi said, framed in the doorway, dragon-headed cane clutched in her fist, glasses glistening dangerously. "Fucking shit, Terezi. You could have just knocked. I've decided," she continued, ignoring Karkat, "that based on all the evidence and through careful consideration that Mindfang is guilty, and I will have to dispose of her." "Well, that's a relief, at least," Solix said. Terezi bowed to the armchair and sat down, crossing her legs, and staring intently in their general direction. "The investigation starts now," she said. "The first thing we have to do is locate the perpetrator. Now, that isn't going to be easy, because I'm pretty sure there isn't a soul in Haven who knows where she resides. We only know 2 locations that she's sure to have visited. The first one is the bunker. We know that she's been there at least twice, maybe more. And we don't know that she will return now that she knows you haven't been there in weeks. We could wait around, but that probably won't be worth the time or energy. So, what's the second place? Solix asked. Rosie grinned and held up her arm in response. Solix raised his eyebrows questioningly, waiting for a response. Her arm. Karkat said hastily. Ah. Her what? John asked, confused. Mindfang lost her arm many, many years ago. She had both arms when I saw her. Yeah, that's because it's robotic. A very intricate, complicated prosthetic that you could only find in one spot, which means she has to have seen. Solix nodded in response. Zahak. That's the end of Chapter 9, or Part 9 of our Haven read. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, please slap that like button. See you guys next time.